Welcome to today's broadcast in our series entitled Beyond Bulletproof Banking. I'm Rebecca Elise, and this episode is brought to you today by the Profit Society. Joining me today is Greg Wolf, who we call the Specialist, and you'll begin to figure out why we call him that. And he's one of our chief facilitators here whose vast knowledge and understanding and especially experience has helped the wealthy structure their financial affairs. Now, they do this in ways that most have no knowledge about. So thank you, Greg, for helping all of us in this area.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and having me on this broadcast. And first, I want to say and disclose to you that none of this information that we're talking about or I'm talking about can be construed as financial, medical, or plumbing advice, anything that is in a licensed arena. So this is for entertainment only and for purposes of just discussing some very interesting things that if you were similarly situated, you might want to avail yourself of.
Yes, awesome. Okay, well, how did you wind up getting started with discovering these wealth strategies?
Yeah, that goes back to my early days of studying trusts and what the wealthy did to protect their assets. Even when I didn't have a penny to protect, I started to study trust indentures and different types of trust and trust law. And even though for a 20-year-old that's kind of a far out thing to do, especially if you don't have any money. So people thought I was really strange. And it wasn't until really the late 80s that I started using trusts, actually. And then I have just, that's pretty much been what I've used most of my life for almost everything is trust. So being excited about and trying to understand what the wealthy do is something that, of course, a lot of people look into. There's a real allure to it, and there's all this information out there. There's all these different posture and positioning. Our trusts are what the Rockefellers used.
Right.
Our trusts, this system is what the Rothschilds used. Well, yes, they use trust, but they also use a lot of things that are not available to most people. And the average graduate trust out there, that's what most people know. And so we're going to be talking about some other things here that is very, very interesting. But it wasn't until about 1998 that I stumbled upon, and it was by, I guess you would say, divine intervention or divine planning, that I was over in Hawaii, and the gentleman that I was doing a production for, he was very, very versed in this area, but he was very closed off about letting people know actually how he operates. But he did disclose it to me. And so it was from that day, and it was right inside the IRS code. It was right from in Title 26, and it was a type of structure that was really made the hair on my head stand up at the time, because that type of structure has no reporting requirements, and ostensibly, according to the IRS, it's tax immune.
Wow.
So these, if you let that settle in, if that sinks in a little bit, if you have the mind to grasp that, the world opens up. Okay.
Yeah,
the financial
it does,
world
right.
opens up when you talk about a structure, literally, that is tax immune. So that's what started me on the journey in 1998, started my first structure operating that way in the year 2000, and then subsequently have had a number of different structures as I've found another mentor, and then another mentor, and then now my third mentor, and really an awesome, technician and background and just character. And he's been able to put together is extraordinary.
Wow.
For a whole set of circumstances that includes not only that structure, but many branches of that, more depth of asset protection, and also the understanding of societies, private societies, and how they operate.
So I got to know 501c3 strategies, that people use, and that's the common term. But I was always curious in the history of how societies started. So if you can share with us a little bit of what you know about that.
It's interesting because I'm not an expert, if you want to call it an expert on societies and the absolute understanding and going back and talking about you talk about the Society of Jesus that was by the Jesuits, and there's many different societies and private societies out there, and most of those, a lot of them that are kind of well known and if you want to say they're like the and you talk about orders, okay? So when you talk about an order and you talk about a society, those are pretty much the same thing, okay? So an order is really a private society. Okay. So the order of Jesuits, the order of Malta, okay? There's a lot of different societies, and it even goes to the very societies that we look at as very deceptive and very evil. Okay, my education and my interest in that was always heightened. When it's talking about societies and religious orders, and I think in the beginning they came about for very good reasons and very practical reasons. It was to preserve certain traditions, certain rights, certain things that they held very close, which you could say closely religious belief systems, okay, which is what every government looks at and actually gives a lot of attention to is a closely held religious belief system. And we can go into more depth on this, of course. Yeah. But that is what really gives it the ability to do and have great laws that back it up and protect it. Right. In every country, there's all these treaties and there's all these laws in every country that protect religious orders. Okay?
I love that. I love that. So what were these orders or these societies originally used for? I would say you did answer a bit of that, but I think maybe some of us want to really know what types of reasons, or maybe give us some examples of some societies out there. Are they all religious? Are they a combination of just different belief systems that come to get people with different belief systems that come together that want protection?
Yeah, I mean, you have societies like SWIFT, It's interesting. If you look at SWIFT, it's where all our money transfers all over the globe.
Yes.
Okay, so if you know the acronym SWIFT, you know that stands for Society of Worldwide, Financial Telecommunications. And so, International Financial Telecommunications. So, but it's a society. It has its ability to regulate its own affairs within its own society, much like a corporation, but it goes a lot further than that.
And so why are some of these societies secret? Why are they labeled secret societies?
Well, it's because they're doing a lot of dirty deeds. They're doing things that are absolutely against the morals and the established understanding and decorum and morals of the day. I mean, you look into some of these societies, Skull and Bones, and there's plenty of movies you can watch that will take you into that world, okay, and show you what they do. And there's many, many, many secret societies that are, besides just Skull and Bones, there's many, many different orders, different secret societies. Okay. And I would say that's the reason that they're secret, is because most of the time they're doing something that is very, not only deceptive, but very evil. I mean, it involves sacrifice, blood sacrifices, children, sacrifices of animals, all these kind of things that is abhorrent to the average person. But because they can classify it in a way that puts it under a religious belief system, the government will actually protect it. The government will actually protect that behavior, which seems very sick. Seems like you shouldn't be able to do that. And yet they get away with it. They've gotten away with it for so long. I believe that there's different societies that have been put together. You have the Templars, okay, very noble, okay, causes. Back when they first started, very noble in their efforts to protect certain ancient writings and scripture and understandings, and they were sworn to give their life and everything else. But a lot of times what happens is those very societies that start with a very good mission end up being co-opted. I mean, you see that in the Masonic societies. So your Masonic orders are religious societies too. Yeah. And so there's many different types of Masonic orders out there. If you do a lot of study, you really realize that for what they put out in the public is the hospitals and the where they're helping kids and these things, but you learn as you go up the ladder, you learn that it's not all nice stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So that answers kind of the secrecy behind why a society would remain secret. But tell us a little bit about how do these societies create a structure that protects them? So protects their religious rights or how they believe.
Yeah, there needs to be, and when you understand how a society and how a body politic works, okay, so because our state government, all the secretaries of state, when you have put together a corporation, it's looked at as a body politic.
Yes.
Okay, which means that it can do. There's certain guidelines that it has to abide by that are already well established in the law, but in not every situation. A corporation can only be looked at as a body politic, not as a body. I messed up. A body corporate. Okay, so there's a body corporate and a body politic. Take those two and separate them. Okay. So corporations aren't looked at as a body politic. They're looked at as a body corporate. Okay. Whereas when you have your municipality, like all of your municipalities, your water districts, all of your organizations, that your state organizations and your separate counties are all municipalities, right. And they're also looked at as a body politic. Okay. So within a body politic, in their closed organization, they can set the rules and the And that's why they differ from every single different municipality.
Right.
It's their own rules and regulations. And if you want to join, if you're a citizen or you want to sign up for benefits or whatever, you want to join, then you have to abide by those rules and their own regulations, their statutes or codes that they've written, and agree to that in order to participate. Okay? And so that's well-established law.
Yeah.
And so the societies function much the same way.
Got it.
A society, when it's properly put together, okay, it's not only looked at as a body corporate, it's also looked at as a body politic.
Wow.
So they can write their own doctrine, so to speak. They can write their own rules and regulations, how they like to operate, and it's protected.
Wow.
And it's not only protected speech, but it's protected under the laws that protect religious rights and religious belief.
Okay.
And here's the thing, the law can't not tell you what to believe. It just has to honor your closely held religious belief system. Okay? So...
so who uses these kinds of structures?
Oh, all kinds of different organizations use these structures once they find out they exist. It is a situation where once you avail yourself of the knowledge of it, then you realize that you are, for the most part, more protected by having a society. And by the way, a society is comprised of two or more people that have the same deeply held religious beliefs. And that's the
That's it.
often people think society's got to be it's all of the people. A society is the smallest society, of course, is a family.
Yeah.
But it's two or more people. So once that is done, once you have understood that you can form a society and it can operate, and you can have, it's much like a church.
Yeah.
But it's a lot different now in this modern world because of all the different things that have happened, legislation that has happened, as of 1954.
Yeah.
Okay. You had the LBJ, you had the Lyndon Baines Johnson amendment to the that put some extra parts into the code, to the IRS code, and what he wanted to do was that these societies were operating, and they were operating as churches, they were operating as private societies, and environmental societies, for the protection of animal rights and things like that. I mean, there's many societies that are out there. What happened was that the government decided, well, it was at the time LBJ, he did not like Christians, he did not like churches, he didn't like it because at the time, before 1954, when you had a candidate running for office and they wanted to let the people know what candidate was who and what they liked about him, the pastors stood up in the pulpits and they would preach
That's true.
it.
That's exactly what happened.
And that happened for decades
Yeah.
before 1954. And so they found a way to put a real clamp on it. And they came out with the Johnson Amendment, which is what put in the language, and so into the code to voluntarily offer, and ask for permission, to be a church or to be a religious institution, to be granted, what they call a letter of determination. That's the binding. That's the catch-all. It is the coup de grace for them, because what they did is they instantly, within about a decade, were able to silence all these pastors and all these people that would be promoting good things. And if you know anything about LBJ, that guy was That guy was a desperate criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a piece of work. Very, very, the things that he believed in and the things that he did and the fruit of his life, I mean, was very telling.
Yeah.
So, but Christians and believers let somebody like that manipulate them through this legislation. They tolerated it into existence. And
They didn't know, though, either.
they didn't know. I don't know if they didn't know. I don't know if they were even awake,
Yeah.
to know. It seems like a lot of the population is waking up now.
Yeah. That's exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really exciting. So, you explained who uses these structures. Did we talk about that
Yeah.
specifically? We kind of went into that.
Yeah, a little bit. The organizations that use them are usually a lot of them that either they are seeking out and have already studied about the 501c3 and the letter of determination and said, this just rubs me the wrong way.
Right.
I don't understand this. Is there any other way? Some people, some that I've interfaced with knew that it existed. They just didn't know how to do it. Even attorneys that I talked to, CPAs, they knew that this existed. They just didn't know how to piece it together. And so they knew that there was a way to do it without all the hoops, without all the red tape, without all of the gotchas, by signing your name and filling out this form and disclosing all this, okay?
Which is traditionally what the 501c3 statute requires, and that's
Right.
what I'm very familiar with. That letter of determination, I've helped quite a few individuals set up their nonprofit, which does take quite some time, depending upon when and how, and getting that approval status. And what I'm finding is you're talking about setting up a society using a different code that most have not been exposed to or been made aware of, except these wealthy societies that actually know how to operate within the confines of the law.
Right.
So, let's talk a little bit more about the details now of what that structure looks like. What is it called, and then how does it work?
Okay. Well, it is that structure basically is a structure that has the interfaces. We help them to interface with the IRS right off the bat. And by the way, we put these together in 24 to 48 hours. And then there's a number of different entities that we help them to put together in order to make everything very bulletproof. As you know, if you have all of your eggs in one basket, in one entity name, in one entity where the IRS and the court system and everybody to see the name and the EIN number that's attached to that name, by the way. And by the way, we get EIN numbers for every single different named entity that we deal with. But when they see that and they want to sue it, anybody can be sued. Any entity can be sued, except the government, and then they have to allow it to be done. They have to tell you, yes, we allow you to sue us. But as outside of government, every entity can be sued.
Yeah.
And so if you're taking everything that you have and putting it into something out of your name, okay, and that's good asset protection, but it's not the best.
Yes.
So you need to insulate and isolate and separate all the high liability items and all kinds of different things. It goes into many different categories. Your intellectual property, okay, is an asset that can be sued and be gotten if it's held in a rate just in your name or So there's strategies in putting it together, okay, and having it insulated and isolated and separated. And so this type of a structure, for one thing, the one thing that's the most amazing is it's what you would call tax immune. And so most people have not heard that term before.
Right.
They understand tax exempt. And let me tell you the difference between an exemption and something that's immune. An exemption is something that's granted to you. And it is a privilege. So you're given a privilege, and that privilege can be taken away at any time or clawed back.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
Okay. And so with something that is an exemption, there's always hoops to jump over. There's always a bunch of different kind of compliance that you have to comply with in order to maintain that exemption, that privilege.
Right.
When it is an exception, and I can get into this, but this is an exception in the code, meaning it's outside of their law, and they recognize it. Okay, and so it actually has not only is it tax immune, it has 0 reporting requirements.
Wow.
And that means when I say 0, a lot of people go, well, it's like 0 is 0. From any state or federal agency, these entities do not file a single piece of paperwork. And they do not have to stay in, they don't have to stay in compliance. They have to operate in a way that is compliant. They have to operate in a way that is honorable, okay? They have to operate in a way where they don't, the big ones are money, not money laundering, but it's commingling of funds. Commingling of funds is probably the number one thing that I stress, deal with, talk to our clients about, and it's very easy to understand after a while. At first it's not, but after a while it's very easy to understand. It's just like, if you have if you have a bottle of water that is just clean and pure, and it is, the water has been tested, 0 parts per million of any contamination, and you introduce just a tiny bit of arsenic or whatever, you have just commingled that entire bottle.
You compromised.
You've compromised the whole thing. And so, and that's one of my things that I can explain at a later time, and I more or less keep this for clients, okay, and those that have joined, to talk about the different ways that you commingle, okay. But it's easy to stay away from, and so there's a number of things that need to be done. But once you have bank accounts set up that are tax immune, your world just opens up. There's a lot you can do, and there's a lot that wealthy people that want to do with their money what they want to do with it, what they know is the best to do with it. That's where it really gets exciting. And that's where we're really excited about helping people.
So it's kind of, you answered my next question was, how are they different than the common entities? So in comparison to a 501, this particular kind of structure, which we haven't revealed yet exactly, but this particular kind of structure that we're talking about that helps operate the societies that we're referring to, those differences are vast, and this is actually why we're educating via videos and via our membership platform at the Prophet Societies, to become a member of our society so that we can educate and teach you how to create your own society, and to do so with this wisdom and understanding and navigating those potential pitfalls of just the learning curve that you have, and then possibly coming across individuals that don't know about this. I mean, I know a lot of attorneys and even CPAs do not know some of this information that we're sharing. So this is very important that people understand this is real. This is absolutely possible. It's been happening for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
We do know this. And all this information that we're going to be sharing with you is going to be in particular links in our description, whether this is being broadcast via podcast or via video. You're going to see links to various different places where you can substantiate and verify this information. This is very important to us that you do your own homework.
Yeah.
Very, very important. So one of the questions that I had was, why do you feel so strongly about educating people about societies? Why now?
Why now? You know, I think there is a lot going on in the political environment of this world right now. And I think there is a lot of disclosure that's starting to happen on a number of different fronts, that where these not private so much as secret societies have flourished using these concepts, using exactly what I'm talking about. They've flourished, okay? And the ones that have been kept out of the understanding of it are good people with high moral values, a lot of ethics, but they have been strategically guided, okay, by the other secret forces, okay, that have the secret societies, into accepting and operating the way that where they can keep them under their thumb. See, when you jump over here and you start your own society and you understand the dynamics of that, and that's really our job. My job, one of the things I do is to help walk them through this this minefield that we'll call the structuring of this and operating this society. It's like if you can imagine, you know, a minefield out there where there's mines everywhere across this desert, and you've got to get to the other side, and you're either going to go alone or you're going to go with a guide, or you're going to have some kind of equipment to tell you where they are. And because I have navigated that back and forth so many times, it's like we can get together once they understand that, and they have the aptitude and the trust level, say, okay, I want to engage you. We can now, arm in arm, run through that minefield.
And that's why he's
everything.
called the specialist.
So I think it's time. I think it's time that this information is brought to the right people.
Nice.
I mean, we really pray that the right people hear this and come into this understanding, because there's so much that can be done on so many different levels.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, if you are listening to this video, you have attracted it in some way, shape, or form, and you must be ready for this information, or else it wouldn't have come to you. So we believe very much in the power of our intention, going forth and selecting those people that would like to hear this information and really understand how to operate in this fluid environment. I mean, the words that you've pointed out, such as tax immune, and that gain some interest, you know, on individuals that really want to make an impact in society. They have a heart for a mission, or they have an understanding about their legacy of what they want to leave for their children and for the generations thereafter. They have a heart for this. Well, here's the answer. And within the Prophet Society, we are bringing members to the table that really want to understand the importance and value of what these structured societies have the potential to do for them. And so let's close with just kind of telling us When should we seek setting up a society?
I mean, it depends. These things are for those that are more philanthropic in their endeavors and their understanding. Societies can be set up actually for asset protection, family asset protection. A society can be set up for an operating church. Okay, yeah. There's many. These type of societies can be set up for operating any numerous amount of ministries. If you're operating and you're let's say you're a medical practitioner. Okay, we'll venture into that one for a second.
Yeah.
You're a medical practitioner, or you're doing something that is really helping a lot of people, but you're just, thinking the amount of red tape, the craziness of what I got to go through here to operate, and constantly being in fear of being sued or having different three-letter agencies attack you. There are a number of people in that industry that have a heart and that have started to move towards the society, and they now have members, and it opens up a whole different arena. Okay, a whole different amount of protection.
I can name 3 right off the bat that I've been introduced to that are doing some wonderful things in the medical field, and just because of their structured membership societies and member-based societies. And so I'm excited to see this, moving forward, and you're going to join us again for another broadcast and learning even more about what these societies do and how they're structured. And if you'd like to learn more about what the Prophet Society does and what our members have access to, including an individual like Greg and other advisors that help in navigating these structures and navigating other areas of interest for people that want to actually build and secure wealth, please visit theprophetsociety.org. So thank you again for being with us. I'm so grateful that you were here, and wow, there's a ton of priceless information here. Stay tuned to the next broadcast on Beyond Bulletproof Banking. This channel is available to you if you subscribe. You can also hit the little reminder button in the corner just to be notified when the next video is coming out. And of course, you can visit us online at theprophetsociety.org for more information about becoming a member of this, education society. So thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.